Cindy had written about the night she left, revealing a secret she had kept for decades. She hadn't moved out just to find her own architecture. She had moved out because she had realized that, as long as she was there, the three would always be a barrier to the two that Jack and Janet needed to become. "I saw the way you looked at her, Jack," Cindy wrote, "and I saw the way she looked at you. You were both so busy protecting me that you were forgetting to protect each other. Moving out was the only way I could give you the space to be honest." Janet wept as she read the words. "She sacrificed her home so we could find ours," Janet whispered. "All those years we thought we were the ones helping her." The revelation added a new layer to the architecture. It wasn't just built on lies and truths, it was built on silent sacrifices. It gave Sophie a new sense of purpose for their journey. They weren't just searching for a spice, they were honoring the people who had made their lives possible. Chapter 38. The International Stage. The journey to Paris for the Global Culinary Summit was meant to be Sophie's grand introduction to the world stage. Victor went as her photographer, capturing every moment for a new book they were planning. But Paris was a battlefield. High-end French chefs looked down on Sophie's coastal fusion, and Julian Varga was there, whispering in the ears of the judges. "You're out of your league, Sophie," Julian hissed as they passed in the hallway of the Grand Palais. "The world doesn't want truth. They want prestige, and I have the backing of the old money." Sophie's response was a dish that defied every French convention. She used the salt of the earth to create a bouillabaisse that tasted not of the Mediterranean, but of the Pacific sea salt, sun-drenched rosemary, and the smoke of a Santa Monica sunset. The critics were stunned. The salt of the earth didn't just add flavor, it added a sense of place. It was the only dish at the summit that felt like a confession. Mr. Tripper, the lead judge, a legendary Michelin-starred chef, said, "You have brought the ocean into this room. Not the ocean of the maps, but the ocean of the heart." Sophie had won the summit, but more importantly, she had reclaimed the narrative. Julian Varga was exposed when a French genealogist, hired by Victor, proved that Julian's claims were entirely fabricated. Chapter 39. The Return of the Prince. Upon their return to Santa Monica, they found that Eleanor Prynne had not retreated into the shadows. Instead, she had shifted her tactics. She was no longer trying to buy the boardwalk. She was trying to rebrand it through social engineering. She had started a non-profit called the Horizon Collective, which was buying up the digital rights to the boardwalk's history. She wanted to create an AR, augmented reality tour, that would overlay the real history with a sanitized, corporate version. "She's trying to edit the memory of the place," Janet said, watching a digital demo on her tablet. "The Regal Beagle was always a high-end bistro. She's erasing the grit that made us real." Sophie and Victor realized they had to fight a digital war. They used the archive of the boardwalk to create their own AR experience, one that was free and open to everyone. It used Larry's photos to show the boardwalk as it truly was: messy, vibrant, and built on the strength of its people. The community chose the real AR over the corporate one. Eleanor's Horizon Collective became a laughingstock, proving that you can't rebrand a heart that's still beating. Chapter 40. The Master Architect. The final chapter of the Tripper legacy, for now, took place on a warm June night. Sophie was standing in the kitchen of Tripper's table, watching her own team move with the same frantic, joyful energy that Jack once had. Jack and Janet were sitting at their favorite table, looking out at the boardwalk. They were no longer the master architects. Sophie walked out and sat with them. "We're adding a new wing to the restaurant," she said, showing them a sketch. "It's going to be a culinary school for the neighborhood kids. No tuition, just a commitment to the truth." Jack smiled, the same mischievous twinkle as bright as the day he first walked into the apartment. "And the curriculum?" Jack asked. "First lesson," Sophie said, "check how the furniture looks on the sofa. Second lesson, never forget the salt of the earth." As the Santa Monica moon rose one last time, the architecture of a lie was finally, irrevocably transformed into the architecture of home. The lie was the scaffolding, the truth was the foundation, and the love, well, The love was the only thing that kept the roof from falling in. And in apartment 201, the door was always open, the kisses were always real, and company was the only thing that made the house a home. The End, the Cowboy of apartment 201, a novel of romance, deception, and shag carpeting. Prologue, the golden hour of Santa Monica. The Pacific Ocean was a bruised purple, reflecting a sun that refused to go down without a fight. In Santa Monica, the air smelled of salt, coconut-scented tanning oil, and the distant, greasy promise of burgers from the pier. It was 1979, an era defined by disco beats and the precarious balancing act of three young people sharing a two-bedroom apartment. Apartment 201 was more than just a living space. It was a sanctuary of pastel colors and wicker furniture. But tonight, the air inside was thick with more than just the humidity of a California evening. It was thick with Jack Tripper's frustration. Chapter 1: The Tongue-Tied Chef. Jack Tripper sat at the kitchen table, a dog-eared Spanish textbook spread before him like a battle map. He was a man of many talents. He could julienne a carrot in seconds and bake a soufflé that didn't collapse under the weight of a heavy sigh. Hoot, linguistics, was his Achilles heel. "Me llamo Jack," he muttered, his voice a low rasp. "Dinner will be served at 8. La cena será a las 8. He was dreaming of a cruise ship. A friend had landed a gig cooking in the Caribbean simply because he could navigate a menu in Spanish. For Jack, stuck in the grind of culinary school and part-time shifts, the idea of the open sea and a kitchen that smelled of lime and cilantro was intoxicating. "Jack, are you still at it?" He looked up. Janet Wood stood in the doorway, her hair perfectly coiffed in that sensible yet stylish bob that always seemed to catch the light. Janet was the anchor of the trio, a florist with a heart of gold and a temper that only flared when the rent was late. "Mucho lousy, Janet," Jack sighed, dropping his head onto the book. "I'm trying to tell someone to bring me a bottle of red wine, and it sounds like I'm asking for a glass of goat's blood." "Why the sudden rush to be bilingual?" she asked, leaning against the counter. "Opportunities, Janet. The world is bigger than Santa Monica. I found out about this cruise ship job. If I can just master the basics, I'm gone, sailing into the sunset with a whisk in my hand." Janet felt a strange, sharp pang in her chest. The idea of Jack leaving of the apartment without his clumsy charm and the smell of his experimental sauces felt wrong. "It's a big boat," Jack joked, though his eyes lingered on hers a second too long. Their moment was broken by the sound of the front door swinging open. Cindy Snow entered with her usual chaotic energy. Cindy was a secretary with the grace of a newborn giraffe. She didn't just walk into a room, she collided with it. "¿Dónde está el museo?" Cindy chirped, dropping her purse. Jack blinked. "The museum? Why are you asking about the museum?" "I heard you studying." Cindy laughed. "I thought I'd help. But honestly, Jack, I wouldn't take my clothes off there either." "What?" Jack asked, confused. "I don't know. It just sounded like a scandal." Before Jack could defend his honor, a sharp, rhythmic pounding echoed at the door. It wasn't the friendly knock of a neighbor. It was the frantic, neurotic beat of a man in crisis. Chapter 2: The Landlord's Paranoia. Ralph Furley was a man who dressed like a kaleidoscope had exploded in a polyester factory. Tonight, he was wearing a leisure suit the color of a bruised plum, topped with an ascot that defied the laws of fashion. "Jack! Jack! You gotta help me!" Furley burst in, his eyes darting around as if the walls had ears. "Mr. Furley, calm down," Janet said, stepping forward. "What's wrong?" "My brother Bart. He's a serpent, I tell you. A cold-blooded reptile in a three-piece suit." Furley paced the shag carpet. "He's planted a spy in the building. He wants to find a reason to fire me, to take over the management." Jack stood up, rubbing his temples. "Mr. Furley, you're being paranoid again. Who's the spy?" "My niece, Veronica. She's staying the weekend while Bart's out of town." "Ha, out of town, my foot. She's here to snoop, to document my every move, to report back that I'm incompetent." "She's your niece," Cindy pointed out gently. "Maybe she just wanted to visit her favorite uncle?" "Unlikely," Furley hissed. Bart's tapped my phone before. He opened my mail. He even had a detective follow me to the bowling alley. Jack sighed. Okay, so what do you want from us? Furley stopped pacing and looked Jack up and down. I need a young man to take her out, to keep her busy so she can't watch me. Someone popular, good-looking, fun. A real man's man. Jack straightened his posture, a small smirk playing on his lips. Well, Mr. Furley, I think I fit the bill. I like football. I drink beer. I'm not half bad at bowling. Furley let out a short, barking laugh. Jack, I don't mean you. I mean a guy who likes women. The room went silent. The joke was an old one. The central lie that allowed Jack to live with two women in a conservative building was that he was gay. It was a ruse they all maintained for the sake of the lease. But tonight, the insult stung. Jack felt a flicker of genuine irritation. Mr. Furley, Jack said, his voice dropping an octave. There are a lot of different kinds of men in the world. And you aren't any of them, Jackie boy. Furley patted his cheek condescendingly. As Furley exited, Jack turned to the girls. His face flushed. A stallion? He thinks I'm a twerp. He thinks I'm a little nothing. He has to think that, Jack, Janet reminded him. Otherwise, we're out on the street. I know, Jack muttered. But a plan was already forming in his mind, a dangerous, hilarious, utterly Tripper-esque plan. Chapter 3. The Birth of Austin.